After this episode with Michael from Syneurgy, he contacted me and say, hey, I just saw your new episode and you have to check out my TEDx talk. And he has 2 TEDx talk and I was not aware of this one. Welcome to the ReeThink Podcast, and today we have a special episode just for you, and today I want to approach it a bit different. Today, as you can see, we don't have a guest, but I wanted dearly to make this episode where I share my insights that I've collected over this amount of discussions I had with so many phenomenal guests, and I have to really tell you that certain things changed in that sense, that I have a deeper understanding of certain things that are going on, and a lot of things are evolved from my initial standpoints. However, there are also a lot of things that I had already an intuitive understanding that it might work like that, but it's now the understanding of it, it's even deeper, due to the discussions I had with everybody that was so far a guest at the ReeThink podcast. Yeah, I had so much fun, and it's for me just a passion to just have the opportunity to speak with these kind of knowledgeable people about the topic I dearly love. So yeah, as I said, today I really like to share what I have learned so far, and also my opinion, how I see things now that I had all these discussions so far. Okay, let's start. So AI is a really big topic. I think for everybody, no matter the industry, AI is the topic. So, and interesting enough, for me, it has almost, let's say, I see two different or I have two stands on it. It can be a very positive thing. It can be also a very negative thing. But now, after all these discussions I had with so many people, and also people that are involved to create applications, software and businesses leveraging AI in machine learning, and also having discussions, for instance, with Lisa Riegel that talked about the education system, and also Manu Kapur that is also developing a education application in that sense, I come to the conclusion that it's a positive. Even the negatives of AI is a positive. And let me explain you why. So first of all, I think it's a huge opportunity that was gifted to us to have this technology that allows us to create new applications that were not possible a couple of years ago because we hadn't had the means to it. And on the other hand, it's also beautiful to see that this software, or let's say this technology, works in a similar way, or the breakthrough came through mimicking our brain in a way. So, and this is also a backdoor that we don't understand in detail how AI is coming up to it with their results. And that's why also we have certain problems of AI is lying and have these strange outcomes. Nevertheless, the thing what I can clearly see now, in particular after I spoke with Lisa Riegel, is I have to tell you, even the negatives of AI is a positive, because it becomes like a pressure cooker and it reveals things, and then it's an amplifier for the good and the negative things. And the good thing is, even with the negatives, because it amplifies the negative, the things that were already there, we have now the chance to rethink certain systems that are not benefiting. Best example is, from my point of view, is the education system. So we see clearly, and as Lisa pointed out very brilliantly, was if you have an assignment and somebody can do it within 10 minutes, asking ChatGPT, it's not the assignment that is wrong. It's not the problem of AI that it's wrong. It's the assignment, the way we frame our assignment. And we have to come back from teaching people just manuals and sequences of how they should do things, and rather, for instance, as Lisa pointed out very clearly, is that we need to come back to training executive function and training, for instance, mindfulness. That's something that should be in the curriculum of a school, of the education system, which is not the case now. But now, since these systems and failing, we have to rethink them. And the same goes also, something I discussed with Ami for Virtual Leap is how AI is using these algorithms to steal our attention. And I think as well here is not that these things are inherently bad. Of course they are in a way, but Lisa pointed out very, very greatly, it's like we have biology and we have the context. And AI is one of the contexts. It will not go away. So I always say the genie is out of the bottle. So what we can do instead, and this is what inspires me about, for instance, Manu Kapur and also Irvin and Michael from Syneurgy, they using this great technology to enable things that we're not able to do. For instance, in the case of Syneurgy, that we are using machine learning, for instance, to determine the biometrics of people in groups, synchrony. And that's amazing because it helps us really to understand what makes a team perform, how team chemistry works. It makes us measurable, and now we can go even deeper. So it's something that amplifies or gives us the opportunity to build better teams going forward. So, and I think when we go this route and we have applications, softwares, and business that are aligned with the human experience, and it's not replacing it, it's enhancing it in a way of, for instance, Syneurgy, or also with LearnPF, which is a great way because generative AI is now enabling LearnPF to be a scalable solution, because the problem with LearnPF is that it needs a lot of preparation for the assignment to be structured in a way that it's really leveraging from the framework of productive failure. And so when I see that, I think it's a great thing. And coming back to one of the things I mentioned a couple of times about the whole time from Oppenheimer, and that they leveraged quantum mechanics to create the atomic bomb. And I think we are in a similar stage right now, that we have this tremendous technology, and we have to decide it as a collective, whether we use it for good and it serves us, or we use it for the bad stuff and it destroys us in a way. And that's why I believe everything net positive. So AI is a net positive, even the bad things, because it forces us to address the things that are broken right now. Because now it's very clear we cannot go away and we cannot pretend that there's not a big problem. So it's so obvious. So we have to face it now. And I think that's a good thing. And now I want to also speak to all the entrepreneurs, all the investors in that space, and inspire them to use this, let's say, challenging time to foster innovation, to create these new companies, these new applications, these new breakthroughs in certain areas in order to have a better outcome. And I think that's my encouraging word to also finish the topic of AI. Let's go to the next thing, and this is brain plasticity. This is, from my perspective and from my understanding, is the inherent key for everything that is good, or for everything that you want to achieve in your life. Whether it's changing a trauma that you had, whether it's having more cognitive performance, or changing cognitive decline, or even, let's talk about depression. It's even good for fighting depressions, bad moods, all these things. And of course, we mentioned executive function, but as I can see it now very, very clearly, is like that you need to harness, or you need to cultivate as much brain plasticity as possible. And I feel like you can already see that very clearly with children. Children do always something new. They don't bother whether it's challenging or they look stupid while learning it. They just apply it. And what they have is, as a result, they have a lot of brain plasticity. So even we, as adult, we have the possibility to do that. So we now know from from scientific discoveries, we know very, very clearly that our brain is very plastic. And we can see it also from the data that we gather with the whole likes of depression and everything that is going on right now because of our modern digital lifestyle. We can clearly see like how this lifestyle changes our brain. That's brain plasticity in action, just the bad one. So for us is now how we can use it, how we can use our brain's ability to restructure itself, to rewire itself for different habits, for different cognitive performance possibilities, for different skill sets, and also, for instance, changing our traumas and changing our way how we see life. For me, the question is now how we can enable, how I can create a lifestyle that enables me to harness and foster and leverage brain plasticity the best. And this leads me to movement as a neuromodulation system. So that's also something, as you might see when you have seen the last or heard the last episode with Max. This was one of the great insights collected. And the funny thing that happened for me in that time was going back is at some point I had this intuitive understanding. And of course, it came also through the discussions I have with Skip Rizzo, for instance, also with Amir, where we talked about how VR experiences have superior outcomes when it comes, for instance, to exposure therapy and all these different things, and also in particular for cognitive performance tasks and so forth. And when you go deeper, then you derive of the understanding that the brain evolves with the body, and the body is there for navigating complex 3D surroundings. So now when you understand that, then it becomes very, very clear that movement is a form of neuromodulation, and the brain is not something that is like totally isolated from the brain, from the body. Like the brain and the body, they are together. And what it connects is central nervous system. And we can also understand that the brain is basically processing all the sensory inputs. So everything that we touches, everything that we smells, everything that is going on in our whole body is processed through the brain. Coming from that, it was very interesting to have this discussion with Max, where we talked about, for instance, if you want to have more cognitive performance, that coordination drills are something that you should do. And I believe that's even in the mainstream that juggling is something that makes you a genius. And now, coming from that perspective and also having the discussions with, as I said, like Ami and Skip and Max, we can clearly see now how this correlates and how we can even measure that. And that's so beautiful. And for me, what I come up or what I draw from that is going forward, I will do more rope flow. Just ordered some ropes for me and my son so we can do that more. And it was also so interesting how Max explained it in a way that when you do these coordination drills and you use your left side and your right side and you combine it, it's a way of synchronizing both hemisphere of your brain together. And then we come even further to the whole topic that we talked about even before from brain plasticity is coming into flow. And in order to have flow, you have to have something that you're struggling with. And you have to have the fortitude to be focused for a longer period of time. And now we're coming back to the executive function, how important the executive function is. Because the executive function is the part of the brain that makes you understand when you are distracted, when you will plan ahead, or when it's about to impulse control. For instance, impulse control is something that is also related to the executive function. And this is critical and needed in order to have flow. And the flow consciousness, this comes back to brain plasticity. It's almost God mode for brain plasticity, because in this consciousness, in this state, the brain is so malleable and it's so fast in restructuring itself and bringing in new things. Coming from the understanding that brain plasticity is the mode or the way to change trauma, to have more performance in your life, the question becomes how you get more from that. And movement is clearly one of the things you can do. And it will be an amazing time. And you want to have more of resilience, of breaking through things, have this grit of going through things that maybe are hard in the moment, but will benefit you in the long run. Going to also music and frequency as neuromodulation. And it was one of my favorite podcasts so far. So episode 13 with Alex. And I have to tell you, like, I had always this deep connection with music. And I even spoke with Alex about this in our first call. This was not recorded. That I have sometimes when I hear great music, that it does something with my body. I get goosebumps and all these things. And the interesting thing that he told me is like, that's very special. It's like you have to have like a very special rewiring of the brain that you are able to create goosebumps when you hear music. So that's not something that is very common. And I was intrigued in a way, but also how he explained it, it was like, oh, okay, now I get it, why music plays such a big role. But it's not even in my life. It's music and frequency is something that is very innate to the human experience, and it's one of the one of the sensory inputs you have the first when you are in your womb. You have all these sounds that you are listening to, and that was so interesting for me to understand, and how you can use music to, for instance, create arousal, so be more attentive and focused, or to calm your nervous system in all these things. So that was also something that was so interesting for me to learn, and I really draw from that to be more focused and, let's say, more aware and in tune with how I use music in order to do stuff. So for instance, what I already did back then is I had like my playlist for the gym. I have also playlist for work, but I feel like also what I want to do more going forward is whenever I feel like, for instance, I'm a bit agitated, that I want to be more calm, that I think, or that I will say to myself, okay, what music will make me more calm, or even come with something like classical music or whatever it is that helps me to be more calm. And funny enough was also the experience where I talked with him about the didgeridoo, because the didgeridoo is something that always feels so, it's hard to explain, but it's something that feels like you already knew it even before you were born. I know this sounds a bit odd, but this is the way I feel about it. And it has something very, very like nature-like, and inherits something that you already know. It's like very hard to describe, but this is the way I feel about the didgeridoo. And funny enough, low frequencies are also helping the central nervous system to calm down. So that is probably one of the reasons why this didgeridoo feels so amazing. And then also we come to the circular breathing, how great this is for your nervous system. And this is also, it touches to something else I wanted to discuss, is the part of the central nervous system. So you might remember, I think it was episode 4 or 5 with Vitalijus from Pulsetto. Pulsetto was the company. We talked about the vagus nerve, and the interesting thing, what changed slightly my insight on the vagus nerve and how the parasympathetic and sympathetic nerve system are working, is that he changed my opinion about it in a way that I was more thinking, okay, we want that our body comes to the parasympathetic nerve system as quick as possible. But he rather challenged my paradigm in that way, that he told me, no, it's not about changing that or being more relaxed. It's more about resilience, to have the ability to be in the sympathetic nervous system and a parasympathetic nervous system, and then you have the ability to change that quickly. And that's, for me, it's a kind of mind shift. But I also understand how this ties into what you tell yourself in that sense. We talked a couple of times about metacognition and how, for instance, all your thoughts and all your state is basically in the thoughts, and the stories you tell yourself are determined by your state. So in the rest digest parasympathetic nerve system that I learned from Vitalijus, it's more about the ability to have to change it from activated and into relaxed states. And that's something that changed my paradigm as well. And I also see how much it's important to master this skill in order to have more capacity to, first of all, be in stress and using stress for your advantage, but also releasing stress. And this comes also back together to what Lisa mentioned, how mindfulness is very important, and the capacity to understand what is happening in your body, and also understanding when my body is agitated and my heart is racing, for instance, and I'm nervous. The thoughts I have might not reflecting what is reality. And this also comes back to what I discussed with her about how perception is formed. And for me, that was also a very, very important understanding. I've kind of understood it before, but the way she explained it made me even realize it even further, that we have this the thalamus, which is like the database of every experience, and then it gets amplified with the amygdala by being who has the charge. And it goes through our trauma, our past experience, positive, negatives, and then when you have a certain input that is maybe neutral, and it gets detected, and then our brain does something totally different based on our traumas, our emotions surrounded about this fact. And this comes back to what is our perception, what we consume. Are we a lot of on social media with a lot of like negative content? And then we have another outcome. Coming back to the whole point of biology, and context is what determines what the outcome is. And I believe that that's very, very good to have this as a framework to also understand the reactions of other persons, and almost be more empathetic to strange behaviors or unexpected behaviors of somebody when you understand how perception is formed. And I think with the right communication skills, that will help you as well, for instance, to have better relationships in general. So, and then when we talk about relationship, one thing that was also one of my favorite highlights was the podcast with the guys from Synchrony, where we talked about team performance, team synchrony. And what I draw from that is basically how, first of all, how it works, that we have this ability in a team to synchronize ourselves with somebody else. And it's interesting to see that it's around like that you have the same brain frequency in that moment, and combined also with other bodily functions like heart rate, HRV, and so forth. And this was also very, very interesting to, first of all, just understanding the science behind it. That was very interesting to see. But on the other side is also how they are building this platform and how they are using video to and the technology. And of course, this is one of the applications I really like, AI to synchronize or to have these biomarkers and understand, okay, yeah, this team is in sync. And so they are able to be a high performing team. And coming from that, I think the applications will be huge. I just, for instance, like one of the things that I did in the past when I was like looking for startups, I was always trying to understand how people work in a team and how good is the dynamic in a team. And I was like trying to be very acute of like seeing certain patterns and trying to understand how that might be tied in and how the group dynamic will pan out in maybe stressful situations. And just imagine if you can do this now, having, of course, you still your senses and your perception, your intuition and everything that you use, but you can also combine it with like data, measurable data. And for me, this is like something that will help me, first of all, like almost fostering my intuition even more, because then you can combine your intuition with something that is very tangible and it's very measurable. And that helps you sometimes then even trusting yourself in your judgment even better. So I can see so much application and so many great things coming from that. And I feel like this is one of the great examples of a company, a product, of an application that aligns with the human experience and is something that helps us having a better, having something that helps us working better together. And I feel like this is the mindset, or this is the values we should contain in order to move to a society that is us in a collective. Because I think we can agree that there are certain things now in society that are not really like working for us. It's more against us, but their incentives are not aligned with our incentives, to summarize it quickly. And something I wanted to show you as well, I think we touched on movement already, but I really wanted to show you that is after this episode with Michael from Syneurgy, he contacted me and say, hey, I just saw your new episode and you have to check out my TEDx talk. And he has 2 TEDx talk, and I was not aware of this one. And I will show you that, and I can highly encourage you to check that out. In particular, if you want to see more the science perspective, rather the perspective we mentioned, because our conversation with Max was also, we touched about science, but we were more about, and this is, I think, also very great that you have both experience. You have like the scientific way of seeing things that helps you maybe having less resistance to something new when you see like, okay, there's something behind it that is provable, that is objectified, researched and so forth. However, our conversation was more like experience based, and what we have experienced, and also in particular Max has a like really special career, and his experience coming from being a practitioner, being somebody that was very sportive, then turned into a dancer, then turned into a personal coach, and then turned to somebody that is in movement. And I believe like if you want to understand a more like the scientific approach to have less resistance, for instance, to start with rope flow or whatever it is, or juggling, then I encourage you to check out his TEDx talk, and it's a great one. I will share my screen quickly so you can see that. So this is the TEDx talk, The Moving Mind, Neuroscience, Philosophy in Fitness. And the interesting thing about Michael, he is super jacked, like really. And now I have also the understanding why he is, because he approached it from the perspective of having a great body and being like having functional, for instance, using functional fitness has a ripple effect to your brain as well. And I think you can see that he's really living that lifestyle. And also coming to the thing that we have discussed about flow, the interesting thing also about Steven Kotler, and Steven Kotler is for me one of the let's say big inspirations of what I'm doing right now. And one of the first books that got me like really into the understanding of the flow consciousness was The Rise of Superhuman. And a funny side note, Michael is the Chief Scientist Officer of the Flow Research Collectives, which is the training company of Steven Kotler. So they are working together and publishing papers. I will show you later also another paper, the paper that I teased. So, and in that book, there was this description of the rise of a superhuman. Most of the things that were described, how people got into flow, was through extreme sports. And how this led to, for instance, in the case of Steven Kotler, he was almost paralyzed with Lyme disease that was undiagnosed, and surfing helped him getting himself together to be able to move again, because at that time he was not able to work. He was basically lying in his bed all the time. And the research he have done with these people that did extreme sports, they were coming into this flow state. And in this state, they were able to do things that were considered superhuman-like. So, for instance, there was a guy that ride like the biggest wave ever. And there was also a guy that traversed the Chinese wall with a skateboard. And he even break his ankle and at the first attempt, but because he was in flow, he did it twice, even with a broken ankle. So imagine that. So as I said, like, if you want to have more perspective on the science about moving and the movement and the brain, I encourage you to check out this TEDx talk. I will try to get also Michael once again on the podcast to discuss the scientific perspective of movement as well, because the way he can articulate is just amazing, and I'm always exciting when I have another breakthrough in a way of understanding certain things. And the other thing that I wanted to show you, and this is also something I teased a couple of, I think even in the first or the second podcast, was that the last time I spoke with Steven on the phone, he talked about that he has now, they were already like intuitively, they had the understanding that this is possible, but now they had enough data to show that the flow consciousness helps you with depression, helps you with PTSD, and all these different things. So because flow is such a potent state to be in, and it's a, let's say, I call it amplifier for brain plasticity, because in that state, the brain is so fast of rewiring itself. It's so potent, this state, with all this, with also the biochemical or the chemicals that are released through the brain, that the brain can change it itself very rapidly, and then it has a ripple effect of other things like as I said, like depression, PTSD, mental health in general. So if you want to check that out, this is the paper. And I didn't finished it, but you can see here the name Steven Kotler and Michael. They released that. So check it out. I didn't finish it yet, but I will finish it yet. I will finish it at some point, and then we can discuss it together. Maybe it's even a good discussion for a next podcast in some shape or form. So this is what I wanted to show you. And yeah, that's basically everything that I wanted to discuss as a, let's say, summary of the things I have learned and package it very tightly together. So, and also how I will use it going forward. And as I said, like, I will do rope flow. What I didn't mention, for instance, I will also start with Muay Thai martial arts. I do already BJJ, but I will try to do Muay Thai as well. I started doing it a bit in Koh Phangan when I was in Thailand, and I really liked it. And it's not the fighting per se that is like intriguing for me. It's more like coming back to coordination and also like having something that forces me to be in my body rather overthinking too much. And there's also another book that I've just encountered is Embodied Cognition. This is also something I will order very soon because as I said, like this opened for me Pandora's box about movement in the brain. So I really want to go into that more deeply. And that is that. And this is already everything that I wanted to share with you. And what is also important, stay tuned because I have like exciting guests in the pipeline. And I can't wait to share these podcasts with you and enjoy your time and think about it, how you can introduce more brain plasticity, flow into your life by maybe coordination work. As I said, like I will do rope flow, martial arts, all these different things. And as I said, this will have a ripple effect of everything else. So everything else will be becoming more better in your life, in particular when we talk about resilience and mental health, when you introduce these things in your life. So have a good one and we see each other around. Bye bye.